So now it's time to build with our first coil. We're going to treat the base or disc we made as like our foundation, essentially. We're going to widen it a little bit with our first coil. Remember, your first coil should be a little bit thicker than a pencil, and you should be able to bend it into a horseshoe shape without it cracking. Have either a bent paper clip handy or a plastic fork, because we're going to do the slip and score method. Just not using slip, but we'll use water instead. That's easier for you to have at home. So take your base or disc and start to score it up. You can do dots and poke holes as I just did a second ago, or you can do a cross-hatching technique. Either method works for scoring, and you can use it in the same manner with the paper clip. You can poke holes with the paper clip or do a crisscross cross-hatching effect. Those are two methods of scoring. You decide what works best for you. But go ahead and score along the outside of the base. Try not to mess up any design work you did for fun. Have your stiff paintbrush handy, not the newer paintbrush you got in your second clay kit, but the paintbrush from your first clay kit. You want to use that. And then begin to score up the actual coil. It's a little difficult to hold a coil up in the air and score it. And it's, tricky to use that plastic fork too. So I'm going to switch to the tabletop right now. That's a little easier. You have more control over it that way. But again, you can poke holes with your fork, or you can do a cross-hatching method. But be, slightly aggressive. Really scratch the heck out of it. And then paint water. It doesn't have to be clean water. It could be dirty clay water. Paint that on your coil and along the side of your base. Make sure you have contact between both scratched up areas. So the scratched up portion of the coil should be meeting up with the scratched up portion of the base. Now you can see my coil's very long, and I'm just making sure that I don't really use the skinny end of the coil. That's the part I'm going to kind of snip off and rip off with my fingertips right now. But save that scrap piece that you rip off. That's clay for your second coil. And just put it off to the side, make sure it doesn't dry out, put it in plastic until you're ready to use it. In the meantime, fuse those two ends together of your coil ring, what's basically a ring, and you want to make your new base, your enhanced base, kind of flat. Make sure it's flat. The underneath, the bottom of the base might be a little uneven. We'll fix that later. In the meantime, take your popsicle stick or coffee stir stick, whatever tool you want to use, and let's remove evidence of the coil and blend away that seam where the coil touches our base, our disc. Now you can blend that with ease at this point, because your coil should be nice and soft, very plastic, very healthy. If you let that coil get too dry, it's going to fight you a little bit and you won't be able to blend that line away. So we're kind of erasing that seam. And then flip over your base and do that underneath. Same technique. Blend away the seam, remove evidence of the coil. And again, I can do it relatively easy because my coil is nice and soft and healthy. I'm not blending the entire coil away. I'm just focusing on that line, that seam. I'm staying away from the outer edge of the coil. And you can clean up that area with some water if you like. You can use a sponge too. Just kind of baby it a little bit. Remember, this is the underneath portion. This is the part that's going to actually touch the tabletop. It doesn't have to be that pretty, but make it level. If you need to kind of slam your base on the table a little bit to flatten it out so it's not wobbly, go for it, but don't hulk out. And I'm essentially going to add more coils in the next video.